Hundreds of everyday household items are about to get a lot more expensive.
Canada and Mexico take a lot of our business over the years. Because of tariffs and the incentives we give, it's coming back.
Major EV projects, including factories in states like Georgia, South Carolina, Arizona, which promised thousands of jobs and were worth billions, paused or outright canceled.
Canada and Mexico have pulled much of America's business over the years. But now, thanks to new tariffs and U.S. incentives, Washington says it's bringing that business home. The problem? For ordinary Americans, hundreds of basic household products are about to get far more expensive. Major electric vehicle projects, plants in Georgia, South Carolina, Arizona, once celebrated for billions in investment and thousands of promised jobs, are now on hold or canceled. The reason? President Trump's escalating trade war. Everyday essentials, car parts, home appliances, even baby strollers are climbing in price. Families already frustrated by the rising cost of living now face another wave of inflation. Breaking news from Washington. Donald Trump is demanding nickel, but Canada just shut the door. The fallout? America's entire EV industry is at a standstill. From Detroit's assembly lines to Nevada's battery plants, the supply chain is frozen, leaving workers in cities bracing for the blow. Just weeks ago, Trump took to Truth Social and the White House podium, declaring America must secure more critical minerals, especially nickel, the backbone of millions of EV batteries. He vowed the U.S. would no longer tolerate what he called foreign chokeholds on American jobs. Tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum were already climbing, sparking disputes coast to coast. Now, with U.S. automakers desperate to ramp up EV production, Trump's demands have collided head-on with Canada's refusal to comply. Before we go further, hit that like button and subscribe to Traveling Vibes. It's the best way to support the channel, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Let's dive in. This morning, Ottawa formally rejected a high-profile U.S. request for nickel shipments. Insiders describe the deal as vital to stabilizing America's EV supply chain. Now it's dead. For U.S. manufacturers, the disruptions are staggering. Nickel, copper, rare earths from Sudbury and Quebec are no longer flowing south. Battery plants in Michigan, Nevada, Tennessee are suspending contracts. Copper smelters in Arizona and New Mexico warn they can't meet demand without Canadian supply. Even coal, essential for steel in Pennsylvania and Ohio, is in doubt. Analysts estimate more than 40% of U.S. nickel comes directly from Canadian mines. That supply is now sealed off. Unlike lumber or steel, nickel cannot be easily replaced. Without it, entire assembly lines in Detroit, Cleveland, and Chicago risk grinding to a halt. Workers furloughed, machines idle, communities shaken. From Detroit to Dallas, the shock is immediate. In America's industrial heartland, this isn't politics. It feels like the rug has been pulled out from under entire communities. For decades, U.S. automakers relied on Canadian nickel, copper, and minerals. Now that lifeline is gone. Layoffs, stalled shifts, idled machinery. This is the reality hitting American cities. In Michigan, Ford's massive Rouge electric vehicle center is already warning suppliers of slowdowns. GM, which depended on steady nickel shipments for its Ultium plants in Ohio and Tennessee, faces what executives call a critical materials cliff. In Detroit, thousands of line workers who just celebrated EV expansions are bracing for sudden furloughs. Out west, Tesla's Gigafactory in Nevada, once the crown jewel of America's clean energy future, depends heavily on Canadian nickel and copper. Without them, production stalls. Smaller suppliers across Arizona, Utah, and California are hit too. Phoenix Smelter's worn output could shrink 20% this quarter. In Tennessee, Nissan's Smyrna plant, the region's EV leader, has already warned state officials its 2026 targets may collapse. Alabama's auto corridor is equally vulnerable, with steel refiners short on Canadian coal. The broader ecosystem is unraveling. Cleveland companies producing cathodes for EVs say they're weeks away from exhausting nickel.
Tout d'abord, je voudrais vous accueillir ici au Canada, en Alberta, ma province de naissance, pas de naissance, d'être grandi. Madame la Présidente, c'est un grand honneur.
Pittsburgh steel mills reliant on Canadian coal warn of rolling cutbacks. Even in Chicago, freight firms face empty containers and idle trucks. And the ripple effects don't stop there. Silicon Valley's electronics sector, already stressed by semiconductor shortages, now faces critical rare earth shortfalls. Smartphones, laptops, and consumer gadgets will all see price hikes. Energy costs rise too. Canadian coal has quietly fueled U.S. steelmaking for decades. Without it, costs in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Kentucky will surge, translating into lost jobs, higher utility bills, and fragile local economies pushed to the edge. Layoffs are beginning. Unions in Michigan warn 4,000 workers face furloughs within weeks. Nevada officials fear 6,000 battery jobs could disappear. Tennessee and Alabama brace for ripple effects across logistics, retail, and small business. Consumers won't escape. The National Automobile Dealers Association warns EV prices could rise nearly $4,000 within 6 months. Replacement parts for electric models will spike in cost, hitting owners nationwide. Even gas-powered cars face higher steel and electronics prices. Perhaps most striking is the vulnerability exposed in Washington. For years, U.S. leaders boasted about energy independence and industrial revival. Yet today, America is exposed, dependent, and scrambling. Lawmakers from mining states demand emergency domestic production, but experts warn new mines take years. No executive order can conjure nickel deposits overnight. Meanwhile, in America's towns, the pain is real. Detroit families facing layoffs, Reno contractors wondering if they'll survive, cafeteria workers in Ohio whispering about pink slips. The word echoing in union halls, paralyzed. Canada's nickel blockade doesn't just freeze factories, it reshapes global power. For decades, Washington treated Canadian minerals as extensions of its own supply. That assumption is now shattered. Ottawa has declared itself a gatekeeper, leveraging minerals for global influence. Europe is already rushing in, Germany, France, and others seeking long-term contracts. Asia, too. Japan and South Korea are eager to lock in Canadian supply for their EV giants. Even China, long dominant in rare earths, sees opportunity to tighten its grip. For America, the symbolism is devastating. Trump built his brand on economic nationalism, on promises U.S. workers would never again depend on foreign suppliers. Yet this crisis exposes just how fragile those promises were. Canada's blockade is more than a trade dispute. It's part of a global wave of resource nationalism. From Indonesia's nickel restrictions to Chile's lithium moves, governments worldwide are tightening their grip on critical minerals. If Ottawa cements contracts with Europe and Asia, the U.S. could be permanently sidelined, forced to pay higher spot prices while rivals enjoy locked-in supply. America's credibility as a trade leader is also at risk. If Washington can't even secure Canadian nickel, how can it persuade allies to align against China or Russia? If Ottawa cements contracts with Europe and Asia, the U.S. could be permanently sidelined, forced to pay higher spot prices while rivals enjoy locked-in supply. And this isn't just about nickel. This is about global trust. America's credibility as a trade leader is unraveling. If Washington can't even secure resources from its closest ally, how can it convince others to stand firm against China or Russia? Canada's move signals a shift, one where allies no longer wait for Washington to lead. Instead, they're cutting their own deals, securing their own futures, and leaving America scrambling to keep up. Nickel, cobalt, lithium, these aren't just commodities. They're the backbone of electric cars, fighter jets, smartphones, and national defense. And if the U.S. doesn't adapt quickly, its industries risk falling behind while Canada rises as a new global supplier. Thank you for watching. What do you think? Has America lost control of its trade future? Or will Washington find a way to fight back? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more updates on U.S. and Canada's political showdown. Until next time, stay informed.